Okay, so a bunch of the people in the community here just spent like the last month basically prepping and traveling all over the country, showing games, learning about games, doing game-related things. And a bunch of other folks in the community asked questions about what the heck happened and what goes on at these things and how should I get involved and how can I be involved and yada yada. So we put together basically a quick presentation that we're going to record and throw up to answer these questions, so we don't have to answer them in person every time somebody shows up and says, hey, what happened on your trip? The three things that basically just happened last month, starting mid-March, was the Indie Train Jam, and then GDC, which is the Game Developers Conference, which is the largest game developers related conference in the world, and then PAX East, which was one of the biggest game conferences for consumers in the world, and we lost connection. And we were involved in all of those things. So I'm going to start off with, we're just going to go chronological order. I'm going to start off with the Indie Train Jam. Indie Train Jam, what the heck is it? We talked about game jams briefly when BGS Jam 14 came up, and this is no different, except for the idea is that basically a whole bunch of indie game devs got together and rented out an entire Amtrak passenger train and bought it from Chicago to San Francisco, and it ends right before GDC. So the point is basically we're all going to GDC anyway, we'll all meet in Chicago and we'll take a train, and over the course of the train ride, as we're driving across the country, we'll make games together, and you get these people who come to participate in this are from all over the world. And so I did it this year. So I'm just going to go through some of the things about it and some of the things that I saw that I thought were cool, and then we can talk about it if anybody cares more. So quick lessons. First off, get in early, because if you miss the train, it leaves without you, and then you're never going to catch it. And good luck. Now you have to get your own plane ride. For the most part, this didn't happen, but I say this doubly because there are pre-jam events in Chicago. So the train leaves from Chicago on a Thursday morning, but on Wednesday evening and even prior on Monday and Tuesday night in Chicago, there's a whole bunch of indie dev related events because a lot of people from all over the world are starting to come in. So there's a whole bunch of things that happen. And particularly there's a thing called Bit Bash that's basically the equivalent of our Game Expo, but with the Chicago indie game dev crew, and they put up a bunch of locally made games. And all the folks that are going on the train try to go to that too. So you can kind of meet some of the people that you're going to be spending the next few days of your life with ahead of time and start trying to, make friends with strangers and whatnot. It was really cool. And then we left on Thursday morning. So a few lessons about the train itself. It is a weird but wonderful place. It is a really kind of odd thing to be surrounded entirely by devs, and also the fact that the train, just by virtue of what it is you're kind of cut off from the world, so you're kind of in your own weird little pocket dimension, kind of traveling across the country. See some pictures here of like the observation cars that you have kind of going through. This gentleman here is a developer from Ireland who I made a full motion video game with. That's Becca and Adam Saltzman. We were drinking beers at like 2 a.m. He's also known as Adam Atomic. They made Cannibalt, and they have a game called Overland that's coming out and whatnot in like a few weeks. But literally, it's like if that picture of like every single person behind me, like they worked at GitHub, or they work on Unity, or they work for some crazy AAA company that you probably played all of their games, and then somebody you've never heard of is working on this really cool indie game is like right next to them. So it's a really cool collection of people with talents all over the map. So it's a weird kind of thing to be thrown together all in this weird traveling tube. Along with that, anything with an I am you will go crazy. So we actually had some people bring controllers that do like motion-based tracking, and you're flying down the railway at however fast the train is going, and the controllers pick that up. And so you go launching through whatever scene you're in, and they don't work at all. I don't know why people thought that was a good idea, but they tried to do stuff with them anyway. And another quick thing is if you are doing this, there's sleeper cars, and they include all the food in the dining halls, and the dining halls are actually surprisingly good. I expected airplane food, It is not so. It is actually totally palatable and like good. That led to one of kind of a pro tip that I kind of fell backwards into, is that all of the tables in the dining car are set up for 4, and it's a train, so everybody's packed in and they have to feed as many people as possible as quickly as possible. So you can't just like sit at a table by yourself and do stuff, but you can put your name in for any of the meals, like breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and just be like, yeah, I'm putting my name in for 1. And then when your time comes up, they'll just pair you with 3 other people from the train, and then you get to meet 3 random crazies from across the world. And I had some really awesome meals and great conversations with folks that I otherwise never really would have, because you just don't get yourself in that situation where you're going to be forced to eat a meal with somebody you didn't know before. At first I was kind of like, oh man, I'd rather put my name down with a group of 4 people I already know. And then I was kind of like, you know what, forget it, let me see what happens. And actually I started doing it on purpose later on in the ride because I wanted to meet more people. This group was one of the pictures I got. It was this gentleman here to my right worked on Darkest Dungeon, and the gentleman with the scarf over there is Richard Limmershand. He worked on all the Uncharted series and did all the stuff for that. And now he teaches all this stuff. He's a really cool guy. Another thing that they did on the train, since there's so many people, there's 350 devs crammed into this train of vastly differing sets of experience. So one of the things they did leading into this to help it go a little bit smoother, because I glossed over it at the beginning, but there is no internet on the train. So if you're used to Googling all your problems or going to Stack Overflow every time you have a question, it is not an option when you're traveling on the train across the country, especially when you get into the Rockies. You don't even have cell phone signal in a bunch of the places you go to. So you have to be prepared to work offline. So to that, they set up dedicated mentors, and they give you that fancy yellow trucker cap, which is just white on the front, and they have you write your name on it and then what your specialties are. And mine had like math and VR and Unity and code on it or whatever. And when you're available and willing to answer people's questions, you're supposed to put it on. And then if anybody sees anybody wearing the hat and they have a question, they can just walk up to you. So it's a cool, interesting way that allows people to identify people who might have knowledge that they need because they can't use Google. And also to indicate, like, I have this knowledge and I'm willing to answer your question. Like, I'm not sitting with my head down and being like, leave me alone, because I'm working on my own stuff. So when I wanted to be left alone, I could just take the hat off and nobody would bother you if you didn't want them to. The other thing that they did is that at different points in the jam, they had table space set aside in both observation cars with a schedule for mentors to be there. And that schedule was posted publicly. So if you signed up as a mentor, you were supposed to basically report to a certain thing and be there for like an hour or 2. And so if people had specific questions about certain things, they could know that they're going to find somebody at that table at that time, and they'll come up to you and be like, oh yeah, I was waiting for somebody who knows how to do something so-and-so to show up. Can you help me with X? So it was a cool thing to kind of, in the absence of the internet, you lean on kind of the people around you that know what they're talking about. And this is both very humbling because I feel that everybody on the train was doing really cool stuff that I didn't know how to do. But also, the people around here, I think, should be proud about the level of questions that I get asked at BGS versus some of the questions that get asked when you're in the wild. I think people around here downplay the amount of skills and knowledge we have in Buffalo. And the second you kind of get out into the open ocean of the rest of the world, there's a lot of skills and knowledge here that is wildly underappreciated, because I got asked a ton of what I would almost assume to be beginner questions around here by people who are shipping like real titles. So don't downplay the knowledge that we have here in town. I think you guys would be surprised to see how much you know when you're put to the test with folks around the rest of the world. That said, everybody on the train like knew something that I didn't know, and it was pretty cool to see all the extra knowledge around there. So it's kind of humbling to be around some of the folks. The sound room, I put all the extra O's because the guy at our car always would be yelling it out, sound room, and they got it all pumped up. The people who worked at Amtrak were actually surprisingly funny. They were living on the train with us through this whole thing. Like the same crew was basically on for most of the ride. And they were actually surprisingly cool and way into all the stuff that everybody was doing. But they had a dedicated sound room on one of the cars where the basically setup was ostensibly a sound booth in one of the moving cars, and posted. I didn't have a good picture of the sound room, but if you see that sign in the back there, it basically said sound room with the arrows pointing this way. And the idea is that one of the things that musicians and sound folks, which might be interesting to you folks, is that it's much easier to float on multiple teams when you're doing that kind of work. You can make music and then use that music in multiple different games, or you can make sounds and then for one person's game and then move on to somebody else's game, whereas programmers sometimes get tied into like specific things where they have to kind of focus down and work on a specific thing. The sound room and music folks can kind of spread their talents across the board. And so they've kind of set up a centralized location for them to hang out and also posted a schedule. So anytime you needed sound or music or anything, it wasn't like walking around being like, is anybody a musician? Can somebody make me a drum sound? You just rolled up to the sound room and just knocked on the door and be like, hey, I need drum sounds. They're like, sweet. And they just put you on the list. And then they're like, come back in like a half an hour. And then you come back and they just throw some stuff on a thumb drive. Like, here you go. So it was actually a really cool way to do it. And I know we've tried to do something similar to that with our sound booth in the past, of like having somebody man it here and there. And it's definitely a cool thing that we should keep in mind for future jams. The other cool thing about the train is that traveling by train is pretty cool. I hadn't really done it before. I don't know how to move this over this way. So this is just Google made a movie out of pictures that I took. So stock music. Royalty-free stock music. So I figured this would be quicker than going through like a slideshow of all my pictures. But we went to some really cool areas. One of the things that's cool about the train is it goes into areas that like there are no roads. There's only the rail line. Only the train tracks are there. There's no roads there. There's no towns there. And typically also when you go through towns, it kind of sends you through the bad areas. The houses by the train tracks don't have to be the more expensive houses. You do see some weird areas that going through. But on the nature side, the routes you take is definitely a unique perspective. Definitely saw some really cool ones. Stop. Awful music. That said, the middle of the country is a complete brown wasteland in March. Most of the stuff you saw in that video happened once we got about to Utah-ish, just outside of past Nebraska. But everything from Chicago through Nebraska, that was the prettiest picture that I could come up with out of all the pictures that I took. That was the most beautiful one that I saw because it's pretty much just flat. And in March, it might be nicer at different times of the year, but in March, it's just, there's nothing to see. Which is cool if you're trying to work and whatnot, but part of the niceness was some of the stuff you saw kind of going through the other spot. And like I said, the train goes through some interesting areas, both beautiful and also depressing. And one of the things that happened this year is we drove right into some of the worst flooding that as the Midwest has seen in forever. We found out the Midwest is underwater after we got underway. Also learned that the freight companies bought up all the railways back in the 50s. So freight takes precedent over passengers. I did not know this. But cargo gets precedent over passengers when you're on the rail lines. So when you get backed up or stuck somewhere, diapers and that kind of stuff goes on the railway before you do. So we had to wait our turn and go down completely different freight lines. It ended up being an entire extra day on the train. It was supposed to be a 2-day train ride. It ended up being 3 days. Some people were more upset with that than others. I didn't really mind it. It was kind of cool. The whole trip was kind of cool, so you're trapped with cool people. So I feel like it could have been a worse setup. Getting stuck at an airport on the way back was way crappier than getting stuck on the train with these folks for an extra day. But these are just some of the pictures and crap that I saw before we found out that our train tracks were completely washed out, and we sat on the railway for 8 hours in Nebraska and then had to back up and go on a different line. So the tail end of all this, there's a booth at GDC that is sponsored, and so the Train Jam all the games that get made at Train Jam get shown at GDC. There's Chris using the weird capacitive glove that a guy that I worked with made to make a weird visualizer on the show floor at GDC. And 109 games got made in the time that we left Chicago and made it to San Francisco. I worked on the one weird visualizer thing that's to the right. I made the full motion video game with these characters here. I only helped these folks with some math in the very beginning. They made this game about orbiting around spheres and shooting each other and like going from sphere to sphere. And so I helped them out with some of the stuff in the beginning, but I don't really have a hand in that past that one. And there was a couple of people who were making their first game that I spent a bunch of time helping out with. So I had my hand in 2 real things and then 3 kind of helped out. And so yeah, I think that's pretty much it. You want to take it from here?
Yeah, I'll take it. So, following the Train Jam, which I did not participate in, was GDC, the Game Developers Conference, which I did participate in, out in San Francisco. This is my first time going to this, so that was pretty exciting. I'd heard of it previously, and there's been talks that they publish online a lot, and different things you see come out of it. They're all really cool, but to actually go is something kind of different. So, it's the biggest conference in the world devoted to game development. It really shows if you go, it's spread across, I think, like 2 or 3 buildings total. It's like 2.5. It's in San Francisco every year, for better or worse. And anybody interested in games should go to this, because everybody who's interested in games is going to this. So you get the big studio people there, you get little independent developers there, and everybody in between. And everybody's just kind of a person there, so you get to meet everybody. There's talks, you get workshops, all kinds of training, networking, lots of different opportunities. Depending on what you're looking for, you're probably going to find something relevant to your interests there. And yeah, nearly 30,000 people there last year. I'm guessing that's there because I don't know if numbers are out for this year yet. Anyways, there was a lot of people there. So, a few things about San Francisco. Don't get a car because it would be horrifying to have to drive in that traffic, at least for me personally. And Lyft is fairly affordable. It's also real easy. You can share rides with people, and there's also a lot of hotels very close, like within reasonable Lyft distance to the conference itself. So, and speaking of hotels, make sure you know where it is, because San Francisco has its ups and downs, both in the figurative and literal sense. Yeah, if you're not familiar with the area, some of the spots I saw when we drove through, either from the airport to San Francisco or from the hotel to a couple other venues, there's some colorful neighborhoods. And don't look like a tourist. Put your badge away when you're walking away, unless you want to get mugged, and then if that's your thing, cool. There's lots of little attachments you'll get over the duration of the event that you can just ribbon out onto your badge. Definitely throw on the pronoun on. Just don't make any assumptions, and it's good for everybody involved. So, also when you're at the conference, there's a lot of cool stuff to see outside of the conference. So, for instance, we did not go to Beard Papa's, but I heard good things. There's a lot of cool places to get food that are not at the conference itself, and you should try all of them. There's what's the name? The Metreon across the street? Yeah, which has like a weird, cool history. If you're into like Y2K aesthetic stuff, you should go check out. But they've also got a pretty good food court that's right there. There's a Whole Foods up the street you can go to. There's a lot of little, diner joints and burger joints all around the area you should go to. So basically I'm saying just avoid the conference food because it's crap and it's overpriced. There's also a Japantown nearby, which I was unfamiliar with this concept. It's an actually official Japantown. I'm not sure what goes into actually getting that, but it's a certification of some sort. There's a lot of really cool stuff there, like a mall where you can get tons of crepes full of ice cream. There's a couple really cool arcades in there too, and there's a photo of some really good ramen later in the presentation. There's a lot of arcades around the area. There's a lot of game-related stuff. Both permanent and temporary, all around the conference. So definitely don't spend all your time at the conference. Go check out other stuff around the area. While you're at the conference, the talks are super important. There's going to be a lot of them. I don't have an exact number, but there's definitely, a couple hundred a day. And you're not going to get to all of them. All the ones you want to go to, you're not going to make it to all of them, and that's okay. They have a thing called the GDC Vault, which is an online sort of video library of all of the talks, where if you get a pass to go to the conference, you will get access to the vault. And most of the talks go up a week or two after the conference. Some of them go up for free on YouTube, some of them do not, and those ones, if you go to the conference, you will have access to. So anything that you miss out on, you can catch it later. They're all over the map in terms of what kind of content they're talking about. Some of it's very introductory stuff, some of it's deep dives into like a very specific, some sort of programming pattern or an algorithm. some sort of audio production or something about artificial intelligence or some specific thing on texturing and shaders. There's all kinds of stuff. And also, yes, not all of the talks are available to everybody. There's different badge tiers you can get. Naturally, the more talks you are available to go to, the more expensive the badge gets. So there's different summits you can sign up for. But having said that, even at the lowest tier, you still get access to a lot of stuff. Yeah, like I said, don't go to the talks. There's as good as the talks are, the one thing I wasn't really aware of until I was there is it's much more important and way more fun to meet the people that are there rather than just listen to somebody talking behind a podium as I stand behind a podium and talk to you. There's a lot of networking opportunities. That photo over there is actually from the Global Game Jam organizers meetup event, where we got to meet people that were all over the world, all hosting Global Game Jam, which is an international game jam if you're not familiar with it. We host it every year, and we met people from, a lot of people from the US, a lot of people from outside of the US, all kinds of different folks making different games and actually running these events, so you can talk to them about how they run their event, or what their thoughts are on Global Game Jam as a whole. There's also food, which is really good too. And it's way better than any talk I could have gone to.
Just real quick for anybody, piece of trivia. This woman who was being gestured at by Seven here, who's the ED of Global Game Jam, she's the creator of Global Game Jam. She's the one who started the whole thing like 10 years ago or something.
Yep. They gave her a trophy. It was pretty neat. Yeah. So, yeah, it was cool, and I would not have met these people otherwise. So it's things like that are a really good opportunity you don't want to miss out. Also, go to the talks. The talks are really good. So if you are interested in a particular thing about games, be it audio or art or programming, you're going to lean more towards those kinds of talks. Other people that are interested in that exact same thing are going to be going there too. So I went to a roundtable on open source applications and game development because I'm really interested in both of those things. And lo and behold, everybody else in that room was really interested in games and open source stuff. And I got to meet like the creators of the Godot engine, which is an open source sort of Unity variant that runs on Linux and a bunch of other platforms. I met some educators that are focused on free software. And the only reason I got to interact with them is because I attended this roundtable. Also, I don't know why BGS should be proud of that picture. Do you want to fill us in?
That is the local game community organizers roundtable.
Yes.
It was set up by folks from Seattle and Pittsburgh. It turned out to be super cool. It brought folks from, we didn't know how many people were going to come to this roundtable, and you might be able to tell by the depth of this picture, but there was like 100 different organizations from all over the world that had folks show up to this thing. And we met a lot of other cool community organizers that are doing similar stuff to what we're doing right here at BGS, and see where they are along their journey. And they had lots and lots of questions about what we're doing here, and they're all super impressed by the stuff that the people here are doing. So that's why BGS should folks that are doing this stuff here should realize that people around the world are kind of in awe of some of the stuff that you pull off.
All right. Another really cool thing about GDC is the expo. So the expo runs for the second half of the week from Wednesday through Friday. And there's all kinds of demos, be it, live stuff you don't get to interact with, but you have somebody talking to it, or things you get to play with. I like the stuff you can play with. And the really cool thing about it is not only do you get your hands on some neat gadgets, there was some VR gloves I got to play with, there's some haptic feedback stuff they had, a lot of weird experimental things. So not only do you get to actually play these things or try them out with, and these are things that you might actually want to develop or work with at some point, the people that actually create them or develop them and work with them are there, and they're talking to you. So you can actually interact with the developers and ask them straight questions on like, how do I do this? Where do I get that? And get, as I guess pure an answer as you could possibly get, from somebody who's actually making it. It's just really neat to be able to make that connection, meet those people, and get that sort of immediate answer. Alt control at GDC is one subset of the expo that is super cool. I had a couple pictures from it on the last slide of actually the Octopad up there. This is all experimental controllers. with experimental games. So yeah, the Octopad up there was 8 NES controllers, but each one only had one of the 8 buttons on the controller. So everybody had to basically play with one controller as one player, but had to coordinate on what button was going to get hit by what person, and they were playing Tetris. It looked like a nightmare, but in a really fun way. What is the one on the far corner there?
That one is, it's basically like a hot pot as a controller.
Ah, yes.
It's like a cooking game controller. And then we had the guitar.
Yep, this was Guitar Wizards, where both players had to put on wizard hats because it looked cool, and then played with Guitar Hero guitars, basically sending little lights on these LED strips down towards their opponent, and you had to block them by playing the same note and kind of fight against each other playing these weird imaginary riffs. In the middle, you had Hell Couch, which was a sort of cooperative, I don't even know.
Demon Bandit game?
Yeah. It was a demon releasing game. You were trying to let this demon out of a couch by basically lifting your butt up and down off the couch and back onto it, depending on what lights they were shooting out of the bottom of it. The last one over there was, I can't remember the name of it.
It's like something Nemesis.
Yes, I think Neon Nemesis maybe. Where it was, I think it was 4 players on one side. They were all racing in a 2-dimensional platformer, and they were all kind of playing against what normally would be an AI opponent, was actually a 5th player sitting inside the cabinet with sort of a world view of the game, and they were actually able to trigger events in the game and try to stop the other players from getting through.
So it's hard to see in the picture, but in front of them, they basically have this control panel that has like levers and cranks and like knobs and things to turn, and they all like big traps and stuff spring out in the game.
So yeah.
Who would have guessed just what was once considered just an unnecessary annoyance of gadgets made 20 years ago just to skip through one of the products back in the NES days is now just something that everyone's doing at these conventions.
It's all.
I'm sure many people I'm sure are from Power Glove. Just an annoying thing, but now it's like at these conferences and everyone's just doing their own version of Power Glove.
Yeah.
It's actually working.
I will say a lot of this stuff too, like you might look at some of it and like in a photo it's just kind of like, yeah, okay, or you read about it online, it's like, I'm skeptical. You go to something like this, you can actually touch it and use it and play with it, and like you're talking Power Gloves, like the gloves I got to play with were no joke, like it's pretty impressive tech. And again,
One slide.
yeah.
There's so that not even the glove. I was talking about
The haptic feedback there. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, that's the stretching glove that
right.
picks up your hand position. I was talking about the cold.
Oh, the coal game, yeah. So this was another one in the old control booth where players were racing trains by shoveling coal. So there was 2 bins of coal. It was like, I don't know, plastic balls or something, and they had shovels, and they had to like actually shovel them into a fake engine, and it would track as the coal runs through it, and pulling levers, they kind of switch tracks and change lanes. And yeah, it's just kind of crazy. I don't know. There's a lot of really neat stuff that you see at this that gives you some cool ideas on how to make your own stuff that you wouldn't normally consider doing, because it's alternative controls.
I guess all the NES accessories are just made at the wrong time, in the wrong places.
All right. I think that's everything we got for GDC. So hand it over to Arsenio for PAX and Mark. Okay.
Start tabling, or does it start? I don't know where he put his stuff in. All right. No, I put on the table.
So PAX East is completely different than GDC.
Yeah, it's way more fun.
In that it is consumer based.
Is this in the same city?
This is in Boston.
Oh,
Complete opposite
So
side.
PAX East is in Boston. PAX West is in Seattle. That'll be at the end of the fall. Those are relatively about the same size in terms of people. PAX South is in Austin, which is a smaller, and there's a PAX Australia as well.
there's also PAX Unplugged.
And PAX Unplugged is a board game.
Yep.
PAX. So there's 5 PAXs.
PAXs.
PAXs. So, like I said, one of the largest public-facing game shows. And the first time I went to a PAX, and you finally get in the expo hall, and you're coming down the escalators or the stairs, and you're just like, no, because there's just so many damn people in there. So before we even get into the tips, if you're coming in during a Friday or a Saturday when it's crowded and it's early, walk all the way to the back of the expo hall. The expo hall is like 1,000 feet long. and everyone stops at Behemoth and Facebook and Sony that are right in the the very beginning of the expo hall. And there's room in the back, and you can work your way this way, because otherwise you're just standing in lines after lines after lines.
I believe that picture on the far right is on Thursday going down that first escalator, and I mean you can see like there's still a crap ton of people there, and
Yes.
like it just gets twice as dense on Friday and Saturday. It's
Yes.
nuts. It's crazy.
So Thursday and Sunday are your light days at a PAX, if you're so inclined to actually try to play some of these games. So yeah, it's over 4 days. This is the second year it was 4 days. It used to be 3 days. So beyond the expo fall, there's tournaments and panels and talks and shows and parties and concerts and a whole bunch of events going on. The panels from a game dev focus are not like you would expect from GDC. So it's grain of salt going into some of these things. They are more kind of, some of them are indie dev focused, but they're very high level, or they're more, consumer, facing and orienting. So just grain of salt with some of the panels, and I left a couple of them actually this
A
year.
lot of them are announcements too. Like there is the big Gearbox one where they announced Borderlands 3, and they pretty much like shovel everyone into a theater and then like announce things.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Or they'll do like live podcasts or something for like, what is Nolan North's podcast? I don't even remember. Yeah. So like they did one of those live, and you have the hosts up there. So you have if you're into that sort of thing, that's totally cool. But there's a lot of people. That's probably still Thursday too. Like that's not that many people.
I think that's
Comparatively.
might be Thursday. Yeah.
And some of the big companies like Facebook, their booth probably cost $1 million. Like they go big and they go hard. So we showed our game at PAX this year. So we talked a little bit about tabling. This is us setting up our booth. Fun fact too for PAX specifically, it's Thursday to Sunday. We got there on Tuesday and basically set everything up before most people were even in town. That was great. That was awesome. Highly recommend doing that. We got in at like 5 or 6, and we were just kind of like check in and chill, but like we got almost everything set up that night, and then we had to do a little bit of setting up the next night too. But things like having banners and backing banners and multiple setups, especially if your game's single player, and have lots of swag. Just a list of random stuff that you might not think to have. Bring some rope. We needed rope. People needed rope. We needed to hang up our banner and whatnot. Things like scissors, a hand cart, even if it's a small one. Any tool you might think you would ever need. Screwdrivers or Allen keys or whatever. Tape, and is more cables than you think you could ever possibly need, just in case. Like I said, extenders for these things are really useful. If you want to adjust your setup and your controller cable's too short, obviously that's no good. Likewise, if you're showing a video game, bring backup computers. We had a couple backup computers because one of them that we planned on showing on did not work. And then the second one we planned on showing on did not work.
Got to bring better
It's
computers.
also 8 o'clock. Along that lines, also bring more, we're calling it swag, but essentially something with your game on it that you think you're possibly going to need.
Yeah, they have these neat little pins that you can't really see from here. But
Yeah, so we had a whole bunch of those pins. We had some other circular pins. We had 1,500 stickers, which we weren't supposed to give out, but we gave out anyways.
People love pins at this convention. It's
We
crazy.
had 1,500 or so business card size things. We had 300 or so. I should have had these. I actually have them all. Like art zines. We gave all of them away, and the last day we had nothing left. So there are so many people there. Bring more than you think you will need. And we got some more cards printed, but for 250 extra cards, it cost what 1,500 cards cost ahead of time. And they were not as high quality, and they're one-sided, and it's just, yeah. So be prepared. Sorry, I gotta take my picture. No, not a video picture. Okay. We had 4 people at our booth. That was a really great number, especially at a big conference like this. You know, it allows someone to walk away for a while, or 2 people to walk away for a while. Definitely don't try to ever go to a conference like this by yourself. I would say 3 is probably the minimum you want to have, and 4 I think was ideal. Test your setup, which we thought we did, but apparently we didn't. But make sure everything works on the hardware that you're going to be using. And the weekend before, we actually came in here and we taped off the size of our booth, and we set up everything the way we were going to have it set up to see if if it's going to work, and we made some adjustments. So when we actually went in there and could set up, we knew more or less how we wanted our booth to be. Likewise, especially doing a video game, try to have your build locked in at least a week ahead of time. You don't want to be scrambling to try to fit in a feature or fit anything in, because you're going to make a bug or many bugs.
You guys didn't find a lot of bugs in your game, did you?
We found the very first person who played our game found a bug.
Oh man.
And he got stuck in the tiles and the geometry of the game. So we were worried. We were very worried. And it happened a handful of times throughout the day, but it wasn't awful. And we did actually go and made a build that next morning to fix some of this stuff. But
It's definitely a blessing in disguise.
yeah.
It's always one thing my game design teacher always said in college. He always said that he purposely tries to break the games we make.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
As you
And
should.
that's how that bug happened. He played, someone played the game not the way we played the game, because we know how to play the game, right? And we would never try to do the thing he did, and that literally first person to play the game Thursday morning broke the game. Bring water, bring snacks, and bring fruit, especially water. It's a wasteland of crappy conference food and
very
overpriced vending machines and
It's so expensive. It's just like $20 for just a hamburger.
it's
like a crappy, like
yeah.
barbecue
I got a
freezer
chicken
hamburger.
sandwich that was $9 and a wet dry chicken bowl that was $12 and
BS.
Did they,
and a thing of water from a vending machine is $3 and it's
Sounds
just
the same at MagFest.
it's the same at any conference. I mean that's not any convention center thing.
They didn't give you crap about that. Did they bring?
If you were a consumer, like an attendee coming in, they might have. Although you can bring a water
You can bring
bottle
any
and stuff.
food or water that
Yeah.
you
I know
want to.
Buffalo
And,
Convention Center gets really
No.
pissy about that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
there they didn't really care. You can bring in all the snacks you want. It doesn't matter.
There's a thing called the PAX Pox.
I had it.
I didn't get it this year, but people are disgusting, and people are holding controllers and walking away, and 1,000 people have held that controller throughout the week. So bring some Purell or sanitizer. Use it liberally. If you're at a booth, insoles in your shoes are going to save your feet. They're still going to hurt, but it's going to be way better than otherwise. And also, it's a great opportunity to set up a way to collect emails. We had a tablet that we were collecting people's emails, basically telling them that, we're going to do some giveaways when the game comes out. We need your email to let you know if you're going to win. But yeah, we collected hundreds of emails. So now we have their email, and we can let them know when the game comes out, or we can give them updates as we're, going along and
do
whatnot.
an amazing job of calling it out, but I put a little red arrow pointing to the tablet.
Oh, yes, there is a tablet
There's a
over in that
on the
corner.
table. So we pass that around and try to get more people to sign up.
And generally, people are way more willing to sign up for things than I thought they would be. A couple people are just like, I don't sign up for things, and that's fine, whatever. But, now we can contact these people, when our game comes out. That's a great picture. Ahead of time, try to set up appointments with press people. It'll naturally happen as well. People will come along, but like having some scheduled appointments ahead of time is definitely beneficial. And generally, we did a thing where we texted them. We had their phone numbers to like, a half an hour ahead of time to let them know where we were, that we're ready for them. Just kind of a general reminder. And really, this should have been on the list of supplies. Like bring like lozenges or like cough drops or something, because you talk nonstop for 4 days. And after day 2, my voice was getting to be shot. And yes. I don't know why this picture is with this one, but
It's the press thing.
Oh, yeah.
They came back and gave us one of their nominees.
yeah, they nominated us for Best of PAX.
Oh.
We did not win.
Oh.
Yeah.
Where's all the people in that picture?
What?
Like, is the less of a crowd?
This was they're kicking everybody out.
This was it was like end of day Sunday, and that's like the aisle behind us. So something that we did, which worked out really well, is our build had 3 levels in it. It was the first level in the game, the first level from the second world, and one of the levels from the third world. So it was kind of easy, medium, hard. We had a badass challenge where if anyone beat the game or beat that level on their first or second or third, whatever, generally it's supposed to be their first try. Them and anyone watching at the time were going to get a copy of the game. So that gets people excited. That gets people sticking around to like watch, because they, if the person actually finishes it, they have to be there. It got people to come back and try it again and again and again and again. Yeah.
I wonder if something like that has anything to do with the whole new trend on YouTube gaming, where people try to do like this Mythbuster style challenges in video games.
I don't know. But it was really good. You can kind of see it down there. We had a little sign that basically would just like ask us about the badass challenge, and we'd have people. There's 2 people trying it right now, actually. But yeah, we had people that come back or brought their friends back, and it was really good. And I don't know where my mouse is. So we had this. We had our little level select, and this is what happened when people were doing the badass challenge, and there's big, music and whatever. So like, call it out. Like, if people are walking by, they're like, "What the hell is that?" And it was kind of, I don't know, it was cool.
So is this in a special PAX build of the game?
Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing was a special PAX build. So basically, you held down start on our main menu, and it brought up that.
And so it was really cool because people love to get like secret knowledge too. Like, so beyond the fact that it's like a challenge, like there's like hold down this button for 5 seconds, they're always waiting. They're like, what's gonna happen? And it's like the fire comes up and it plays the alarm. They're like, geez, and then people stop and look and they're like, well, now we're watching. Because if he does it, we're gonna win something. They're like, no pressure, buddy. Like random people would walk up.
Yeah.
People love being in those high tense moments.
Yeah. How do I get it?
Speaking of.
Yeah.
Yes. So this was the guy who played our game the most, to the fact that he beat the badass challenge on like day 1, maybe day 2. On day 3, I think it was day 3, he came back and we asked him like, "What do you think about this level?" He's like, "Oh, I felt like I relied on the laser pickup in it too much." I was like, "Well, the guy who designed it, he beat the whole level without using any pickups." He's like, "All right, I'm going to try that." And he did. And it took him like 20 times, but eventually he got it. So the next day, we actually made a build specifically for him, where we took that level, and it's a thing in our game. And all we did was we switched it. So our game, you go to the right, now you're going to the left. And it doesn't sound like that matters, but it messes with your freaking mind.
Going this way?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. All we literally just mirrored the level. It took him a couple times, and eventually he beat it. So we gave him a little art book because of it, because we gave him all the swag we could possibly give as it was. But I mean, this guy is going to buy our game when it comes out, and he's going to tell people about our game. And you want to encourage those people who are into it. And we had a bunch of people who came back 10 different times and brought their friends, and they're like, "Oh, you have to see this," And I don't know how they heard about it. I don't know if we have an actual slide about it, but like because of that, IGN stopped by our booth, Nintendo stopped by our booth, Variety Gaming stopped by our booth. Like people that, pretty big names around, So we had a really good write-up in Variety. We were on the 5 most what the fuck games for IGN, from PAX, and yeah.
Did they do any article, like, gonna be coming out with you guys on that, or?
For IGN?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe when we come out, but, and then what is this? That's just pay attention to people. It's not a blind play test. If they're getting frustrated or if they're not quite getting it, like, talk to them, and just let them know, oh, this is how you do it, or hey, go grab this thing. We did that a lot. We also learned that there's probably should be some call-outs in the game because of that. And have a way to get some basic analytics. Most of these are fun, or I guess they're mostly legit, but like every single time someone started a level, we were collecting that data. So over the 4 days, we had 1,500 or 1,300 levels started, plus or minus. We gave away a whole bunch of stuff. We spent a long time in the bathroom.
Waiting in line for the bathroom?
Yeah, that's obviously not real, but we did spend a lot of time waiting in line for the bathroom.
Okay.
There's 30,000 people in a convention center. There's going to be lines in the bathroom.
Always.
It depends. I mean, minutes.
Okay, that's not.
Minutes. It depends on if you needed a stall or not. It's really what it came down to.
How did you exactly collect this? Is it just something like when the game is done, it just?
Every single time a level was exited, so whether it was quit, they beat it, or they died, I was just writing out a file, and I tracked what level it was and how they exited the level. Yeah.
Is there any analytics you wish you would have taken in hindsight?
We used to have builds that took like a lot of analytics, like where did they die, how many times did they punch, were they grabbing, and it got to the point where on that scale, I think it would have been too it wouldn't have been helpful. It would just been like too much information. But getting a rough idea of like how hard was a level, how many people completed it versus died versus quit, I think that was useful. We could have collected a lot more. I don't know that it would have been, I don't know. It would have just been numbers for numbers' sakes, I feel like. We did get flipped off a lot because of our game. If you guys haven't seen our game, you're a space shooter where you're a big finger. We got 95 million business cards. What is this?
What is?
Oh, this is Wayne exhausted after. Oh no, I think it was his back, just standing all day long. And
He was stretching and his feet hurt.
yeah. If I'm wearing the shoes I wore at PAX, if I did not gotten insoles for them, my feet would have been a nub. Definitely try to sleep. You have to be there fairly early. There are a lot of parties and stuff that Arsenia's going to talk about a little bit, but
I went to some of them.
Getting drunk all day, all night at 2 a.m. is not good for your waking up and showing your game and talking to people and being engaged. So indulge in moderation. Likewise, very similar to GDC, there's a lot of really good food in Boston. It's not at the convention center. We ate some meals at the convention center for just sheer necessity, because literally, we had people lining up at the booth all day long, and we had to just grab what was within eyesight. But there's a lot of very good food. So
That food looked straight out of like something. Looks like the kind of food you see in like a Chinese street market.
yeah, no, there's some, there's this dim sum place I go to every year. I go to PAX. It's really good. There's a lot of really good food.
It's a
That's
great
the one
place.
from San Francisco.
Yeah, that's the
That's
ramen we
ramen
had in San
from
Francisco.
Japantown. That's really
Yeah.
good. That other one is, if you look at it real quick, so we had a whole bunch of people. We were waiting way too long to eat. So I bought that giant pile of fatty goodness on the table for everybody to get. Wayne was going to buy one of those for himself and didn't when I got it for the table. And this is him realizing what a mistake he almost made.
Yeah, and
Top 10 moments you saved your life on accident.
carry business cards. We talked about that. This kind of goes for any convention, but especially at something like PAX, different people that are there for different reasons have different badges. So like mine said exhibitor, and I had a little indie mega booth thing on it. You know, people that are in the media had a yellow one. People that are content creators, you know, YouTubers and whatnot had a different one. People that were just attendees had a different one. And you can sometimes see people like, oh, is it even worth my time to talk to you? Like it's awful to do. You know, that's to be said. You know, it's okay to give media a little extra attention and like, oh, I should probably talk to this person, but you know, don't ignore the other people. You never know who's there as just an attendee. You never know, you know, what person for what company.
This goes doubly for GDC. GDC,
Yeah.
you have your name on your badge and the company you work for, and you will see a lot of times you'll be talking to somebody and you see their eyes flick down and be like, oh, you work for EA or whatever, and like if you don't, like they're like, you can see them panic and try to get away. And it's a really bad way to try to meet people and whatnot. Because you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know if they're friends with the people that you're looking for or whatever. So
Yeah,
just be
and
careful.
you know, if you're talking about like, you know, game developers can talk about mechanics. You're like, oh, that Cryptid Necrodancer is an awful game, and Ryan Clark standing behind you. Like that's not a good thing to happen, you know, because literally Ryan Clark was standing behind me at PAX at one point, you know, and it's just, you know, situational awareness, I guess. But generally, you know, don't talk shit. You want to talk about parties? I didn't go to any parties this year. I was so tired.
I tried to go to as much parties as I could.
Well, he was an attendee, and we were not. So.
Yeah. So while I think you could just meet a lot of people at parties too, like, you know, versus on the floor, because everyone's just kind of like trying to chill and everything. There's a lot of free parties. A majority of the bigger parties are free. Like the Acer Predator party, they usually have that at the, and like I don't go to clubs or stuff normally, but like I did here, like they usually had at the Royale, I think they call it, yeah. And this year they had it at the House of Blues. Mm-hmm. There's the PAX pre-gamer party, which you're old. Which I believe is here, and it's a huge, like, just like, you know, party that they have at the main hotel there, and all these like indie games like come there, and basically it's a PAX before the PAX. It's pretty neat. You get to speak to all these people who are like, you know, just, you know, trying to get their game played or in front of people just to, you know,
yeah, maybe
play
10% of the people there, if that, will actually be like on the PAX show floor.
Yep.
These are like even smaller indie game devs and whatnot. So it's a really good event. Definitely recommend if you ever go to a PAX. It's always the night before PAX. Highly recommend going to it.
Yeah, and the cool thing is about like all these parties is that like everyone there is friendly. You know, like I haven't met anyone that, you know, will, you know, look at me and then turn them around, go running or something like that. It's just like a great way just to talk to people that you probably don't normally talk to. Let's see. I went to this one. It was like actually a boat ride, sort of cruise-ish thing. It was called a Tyrannic 4, and it was an event sponsored by Adult Swim. I believe like the tickets went on sale like 2 weeks before, and then like pretty much got sold out within like 2 hours or so. But there was like all these like adult people from Adult Swim Games who just like went up there from Atlanta. Really cool. I even saw like, you know, Justin Rowland just like roaming around the ship, just, you know, taking pictures and things. The creators of like Duck Game, which I think they're promoting there because they just, you know, had it running and let people play it and stuff, was there. Person who made Toe Jam and Earl on the Switch, the new one. He was there, and he's just like, you know, a really nice guy, also like an assistant professor at a college, which is kind of neat. Yeah, just like, it's just a lot of stuff to do, and, you know, some of the parties are, I feel like, the best way to just like meet people. There's so many people that I just like met and talked to and just like go up to them, and it's like, oh, what do you do? What do you do? You know? Oh man, that's the worst. I thought I had it public.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm not gonna do this now.
Probably take too long.
Yeah, it probably takes too long. But anyway, all these videos are just like videos of all the parties I went to. A majority of these videos are just like pretty much the Acer Predator party, which is kind of like I guess the bigger one. They actually have people stations of just games on them and stuff, so you can just like go up to them and play them. The second one there is like this weird kind of like racing sort of sim. That thing like just like moved around. Some big names like Pegboard Nerds was there. Just like a fun little event, honestly. And then that. Was that before? Yeah, was that before you were or breaking down?
That was set up.
There's that. But yeah, any questions? Yeah.
Did you guys end up seeing Polycade there by chance?
Not sure. I played so many games that like I've only.
You will never play all the games.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
I'm just curious because that's like Nolan Bushnell's son, and they're doing something like trying to have like arcade in house. Like it's just weird.
Yeah, I could say maybe, but I'm not really sure. Like I've tried to play so many games throughout all 4 days, and you know, pretty much you're just kind of tired of playing games. Like as on the consumer side, at least, like you just don't want to play games for like a good 2 weeks afterwards.
As an exhibitor, you play like 4 games.
Yeah, you do nothing.
I guess a little hint, if you do exhibit at something like this, it's open an hour early before, and generally, like, after the first day, people are set up, and then you can go play people's games before the horde of people come in.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, like if there's no more questions, then good question.
It's gonna be a silly one. Have you seen Zach or Tom Adams there?
You'd be more likely to see either of them at GDC because they've done talks there in the past. Tarn has, yeah.
All right.
So, and neither them, but like Brian Bucklew was at GDC this year and gave a talk on Caves of Cud. The Adams brothers make Dwarf Fortress, so more roguelike stuff. Yeah, I mean, you're more likely to see, at least in my impression, people who are working on games at GDC.
All right.
Talking about game stuff. I don't know. You guys can.
Yeah, people. I mean, the majority of the people that you meet at PAX are people who like to play games or like to stream games. Like, it has a real big streamer presence there. People like what's that one guy? Septic guy was there. Like, there's just like all these like big names, at least in the streaming world there.
I think Ninja was there for like a minute.
Yeah, Ninja was there for a minute. Even Aaron Hansen, if you're familiar with the Ego Raptor series, was there. Like, it's just, I don't know, just kind of cool to see all these people in one place.
The game that you guys are showing that you made, was that made here?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
That one. They made it.
Sweet.
I did nothing.
Yeah.
I played it many times.
Probably
over.
have build somewhere around if you're really interested in it. It'll be set up next week, I'm sure, or whenever arcade night is. 2 weeks?
Yes.
Yes.
Was it made on Unity?
Yeah.
Okay,
Want
cool.
to set up?
End of the summer is when we're gonna try to release it.
All right.
Phil, do you want to set up? Or-
Yeah, okay, so the question I have is, I guess, what is the setup that's different of GDC compared to PAX? Obviously, it's different, lots of people, consumers and stuff, but.
So at the expo at GDC, it's focused more on because attendees are largely developers, the majority of the booths are focused on middleware or game engines or applications and platforms that are useful to game developers. There are games there, but they're usually kind of limited to the things that they have at alt control, or the IGF has a separate indie game kind of collection of games you can play there.
Or Indie Mega Booth has a thing there too.
Indie Mega Booth did have a thing there. I'm guessing it's a little smaller than what they do at PAX. Yeah. So in the conference halls, there was Indie Mega Booth. They had probably about 15, 20 games there or so. And then there was Mild Rumpus was the other one that had a bunch of other independent games you could play. These were set up so you could kind of stop in and check them out between talks at the conference. So very low key.
Yeah, PAX is more geared towards people trying to sell you their game essentially, or trying to get exposure for their game, or really just trying to get people to play their game. the little indie mega booths are not cheap. Like I think it ranges from like $1,500 to $2,000 just for the whole weekend.
An easy way to get a lot of good publicity.
Yeah, but if you're like selling like a bunch of copies, then it's totally worth it. You know, you get so many eyes on your game, you get press on your game.
I do wanna-
There, the bigger name people there are obviously sort of trying to sell their games, but I mean, you know, like you'll see a lot of things that are like coming out within like 2 weeks to a month there, especially for, you know, Sony, Microsoft, who else was there? And Nintendo, you know.
So I guess to like piggyback that question.
So that is the expo hall at PAX East.
That's pretty
Our booth was that one. I mean, so just massive amount of, you know, games. And obviously these bigger ones are generally publishers, so they have many games set up. But it's huge.
To piggyback my question, because obviously doing board games is different than doing video games. There's something that in board games is called Unpub, and it's basically like a bunch of developers go to have the whole general public play, but it's also to have publishers come in and check them out to get looked at by publishers. Is there anything like that for video games, or is PAX kind of
Both of these events
Yeah, I
are.
mean, there are publishers at all of these events.
So so last year at GDC, talked to a bunch of publishers at GDC. At PAX, there's publishers that are obviously have their own booths, and the people who are staffing those booths are walking around looking for content, potentially. I guess kind of the whole angle is that like GDC is all kind of like business to business. Like your people go there looking for jobs, or looking for employees, or looking for partners, or looking for publishers, and like looking to work together to make a thing. And PAX is about, we made a thing, we want to sell it to the public, and they're putting it in front of the public. So it's kind of like GDC is kind of like,
Yeah, it's GDC is focused on more kind of creators, whereas PAX is more consumer oriented.
Not that you couldn't like talk to people and network too, because like this is
Totally.
yeah.
I mean, there's still thousands of game developers and people in the industry at this thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Like on that, like when I went on that boat, I think like there was like maybe 50 to 60 tickets that went up, and like a majority of people on that boat were from like Adult Swim Games or like smaller indie developers, and I mean those are people in the industry, like, so even though Adult Swim Games is more of a publisher than a developer. But yeah, it's just like a huge event, and it's mind-boggling how many people are there and how many games are there, and you know how many people that like really like games. In addition to this, also there's like a whole board game section too,
Oh, yeah.
where you could just like rent board games, and people like there's like hundreds of people just playing board games.
So this,
Like all
I
day.
mean, trying to see roughly, like this is half of the expo hall. Like the other half is actually going to be, they have a whole arena set up for like they're doing tournaments and stuff. the
Like
whole
card
time.
games and stuff,
All the
yeah.
card games, all the board games, and then like the back third of it is literally just open tabletop gaming and open PC gaming. So, I will say, if you ever go to one of these PAX, like this is where you should go. I mean, I say that because I was in it this year, but literally every year I go, like that's where you like. Okay, yeah, you can go to Square, you can play their next game, and you can stand in line for an hour to play it. But like, those are the cool like indie games.
Yeah.
You know, that's
also-
a great place to be.
beyond the fact that I also agree that the games and the people that are cooler, the people who made those games are also very
They're-
likely to be there.
they're standing
Yes.
there.
Whereas like at Square Enix, they've got like a marketing person that's running the booth and has nothing to do with development of the game.
Yeah. So you can play the game, and be like, well, you can ask how they did something, and they're like, you know, why you made that choice, and you know, stuff like that. And,
Like there's way more value in talking to those people.
yeah. By and large, you can. I mean, you can't normally walk right up and play it, but you're not standing in line for an hour to play
Yeah.
the games as well.
How big was your booth?
10 by 10.
What was the size of it?
10 by 10.
Do you guys know off the top of your head why that gigabyte booth is so big?
Do you have
A
any
lot
idea
of
how
I
big a
remember what
gigabyte
was
is?
there. So
Yeah.
like this Facebook gaming booth, they had like a huge stage like area here, They had all along here were like rooms for using like Oculus Go and stuff. Like their booth was crazy.
The Gigabyte booth is big because they're trying to sell you like PCs and parts and things. Like literally, it's funny too because like all the like big sort of PC parts people were there,
Yeah.
but they're trying to like sell these like exorbitant like PCs. Like literally like I think one PC was like in a fish tank or something like that. Like just ridiculous shit that you probably don't need with more LEDs that you can possibly imagine.
Wizard of the Coast was huge, but it was also like it was essentially like a big stage and arena.
Yeah.
They literally had pyrotechnics like while people were playing Magic and stuff.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was kind of funny too because like the people on stage were just kind of like, yeah, like I won, and then like fire would sprout out. You hear the smoke. You can see it from like across the expo hall. But
And so literally the biggest thing that happened at PAX is there's this like arena area over there, and they had a Smash Brothers tournament.
Oh man, that's
and
crazy.
I don't know if we have a picture that we could show, but like there's the convention center, and then there's two like skyways on the second level to like get through. Like literally, that whole area was full of people. People were camped out in the skyway so they could watch the big screen. When anytime anyone, took a stock or something, the whole place went crazy. Like you could hear it from, hundreds of feet away. It was insane.
Yeah.
It was literally insane. I don't think they expected that many people to care about the Smash tournament. But,
It was not even like tournament rules. They had their own set of rules.
I know they're using like
Items
guns
on
and
and smash balls, and it was like, what is this?
It was crazy, but yeah. And also, I mean, just not that this matters, but it's fun. They have like in this back corner that you can't see on this map, they just have like an area where they do like autographs and stuff during the day.
Mm.
But in the morning, they let people like in and basically line up. And there's just you walk over to go to the bathroom while you're setting up, and there's just like 5,000 people just standing there like waiting to tear down a barrier and come play games, and it's insane.
Also, this whole section right here, all dice. Just all the dice you can possibly imagine. Like all types, plastic, crystal, like diamonds, just like, it just, all the dice.
Diamonds?
Huh?
Diamonds?
Yeah, like die made out of diamonds.
They have
It's
the
crazy.
mammoth bone ones.
Or like
Yeah, they have like bone ones, like just ivory, I don't know.
Wait, so like they've got these things in like glass cases? And
Oh yeah,
you can buy
definitely.
them, and like $200 custom wood-made dice towers.
Mm.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's like if you play D&D, it's it's a dream come true, really.
And also,
Or any other game with
much
dice.
to honor Jim Grid, the U.S. Army was there.
Oh yeah, I went there. They keep contacting me, but I got a cool what? Dog tag with my name on it.
Yeah, you're still enlisted in the Army.
Yeah, I think I was.
Oh, you didn't know? You ship out on Monday.
I should wear that. Yeah, all the recruiters keep calling me. I'm like, no, I just wanted a dog tag. Please go away.
Oh, also a top tip, if you ever go to PAX as an attendee, if you don't need a backpack, don't bring one, because then you largely don't have to, like everyone gets like TSA style security pat down and whatnot. You can go right through all of that if you don't have a backpack. That has to be checked.
It's not TSA style. It's way more loose.
It's more invasive.
No,
I'm just,
like they have like
there's no
a
X-ray.
they have like
There's no
a wand, and they're
machines
like,
for your
okay, here you
bags,
go.
but
Like I had.
You go through metal detectors, they check your bags,
Yeah, like I had my leg thing on, and they're like, "Oh, you could just go, it's fine."
Security theater, but it takes a long time to check all those bags.
Yeah.
What were the other indie game developers selling? Like obviously other than games.
Well, I mean, most people, like, people do sell stuff, but largely, like, you're not there with a table to, like, sell.
Right.
It's really, it's like, you want people to pull out their Switch and buy it, or, wish list it on Steam, or, some people do sell codes and whatnot, or, limited run games is there selling, like, copies of games and stuff.
There's a
It's
lot of
more set up to, like, get as many people to see and play your game as possible.
like multiplayer experiences, like 4-player multiplayer experiences. I saw this year.
Was there any like notable setups that other developers did?
Just like how they set it up?
Yeah, was there anything like particularly interesting about other people's setups? Like did they do like anything
Yeah, I
that
mean-
made them stand out?
some people definitely spend a decent amount of money just like to make their group comfortable. Like, you have a 4-player multiplayer game, so they had a couch setup, right? And you can just come and chill on the couch while you're playing the game. And trying to think if there's anything like.
There's just
I mean, all the big companies have like really awesome booths.
There's just one booth
for
with
whatever it's worth. But
there's like 2 coffins or something like that.
oh
I
yeah,
saw.
To play one of the games at Tiny Build, I forget which one it was, but literally they had 2 coffins set up, and you could lay in it with a switch and like play the game. You know, it's just like. And now people are gonna tweet about that or post pictures on Instagram. Yeah. What else? I don't know. I literally didn't get to move around this year as much as I normally do.
Yeah, I feel like I saw very little of it.
I saw it too much.
So you should be able to answer the question.
What would you like to know?
Interesting subjects.
The Army booth has these little tiny robots. They have an esports team apparently, which they're trying to recruit for. You have to, the Army booth. You have to sign up for the Army to sign up for the esports team, though. So
You know, there's it's often a bunch of generally first-person shooters will have like actual setups with like 2 teams set up. You know, and like someone commentating on them. There were a couple of those set up this year.
Yeah.
So like, you know, you get two teams fighting on the game, and you have someone giving commentary. Brawlhalla always has a huge TV that you know you can play on, and they do a thing where if you beat 2-on-2, if you can beat their devs, you get like all this swag and stuff, which they always have a crowd because of that. You know, and a line for people waiting to try to beat the devs in the game. That's cool. I didn't even know that was still a thing.
How much does it cost to have a booth like that? Because it says 10 by 10, it's got to be up there for PAX.
I don't know hard numbers because I didn't pay for it directly, but I would probably say a 10 by 10 booth is like $3,000. You also have to be accepted. You don't just get say yes, one booth please. You have to submit a game, or if it's a game, you have to submit your game and a build, and it has to work, and they have to play it, and they have to accept you.
So you can just buy a booth down here.
You still have to be accepted.
To PAX, but to get into the mega booth, you have to get like a
You have to be accepted into PAX though too.
Well, sure, but the solos that like you're not part of the booth, you can buy those ones. But yeah, they only have so many. And
What are the ones on the bottom?
that's just like the
All-
solos, like not connected to like a bigger thing.
All of the brown ones are just like, here's your booth. Whereas the ones in the middle are part of the Indie Mega booth. You still have to pay for your booth.
Yep.
It's a slightly discounted rate, but it's nominal. It's maybe 10 or 15%. It's, but yeah, no. We originally actually submitted to PAX. We were accepted into PAX itself, but you do have to be accepted for that as well. Then the Indie Mega booth accepted us, then we said, "We'll screw being on the outside boundary by the bathroom."
I want my game in the bathroom because then everyone will see it.
Exactly.
That'll bring it back to your game.
So it's amazing. They had a bathroom. It wasn't connected to nothing.
just an outhouse.
All right, going off the rails. Any other questions? About any of the things, I guess, before we kind of close down the whole thing?
Cool.
The guy who did one of the Toronto developers that did, what was his name? Bleed? Yeah. He did a write-up on how much it cost. I was reading it recently. He said with everything included, he was like $4,000.
Yeah, I mean, you have to
something like that.
you have to get a hotel. I mean, you need food. You add all that stuff. It's probably $4,000 or $5,000.
Between the
prints and everything.
Between the booth and a hotel, that's easy for.
If
That's not even counting food and drink.
If we had to also rent equipment, so we drove all the equipment up. Like if we had to rent TVs and stuff like that, obviously it would have cost a lot more.
A lot of people from previous years that I heard used to go to Best Buys and stuff and buy TVs, go 4 days, and then return the TVs.
And they're on to that.
Yeah.
They don't let you do that. So a lot of people now will buy a TV, and then on Sunday there will be signs up, buy my TV.
Yeah. You can get really discounted TVs and chairs the last day. It's great.
That's totally. I think a lot of devs that don't care is a lot of times it's even cheaper to buy those TVs than it even to rent them for the 4 days. So we'll just buy them and then just give them away or raffle them off or something.
So for next year, would you buy a TV from the Best Buy over here because it wouldn't suspect it, and drive.
Well, I mean, we brought it.
You could do
We already
that.
got it with you and then return it here.
Exactly.
You're onto something.
I will say, I don't know if we had any say in it, but a corner booth setup allows you much more flexibility.
They probably do if you tell them early enough.
Yeah.
Before the first applicant.
But we didn't think about that. And it's, roughly speaking, you have a 1 in 3 shot of being in the middle. We were in the middle. It worked out fine. It worked out fine. We still had 3 setups. We could have had not that we had room in the car for it, but if you're on the corner, you could very easily set up 3 big TVs, whereas we have 1 big TV and we have 2 monitors in the back because we have walls on either side of this.
Was your space pretty packed in then, or was there
There's still
some room to move around?
There's still a lot of room to move around, but you get people in there real quick.
Yeah.
The first day we had to be taped off on the outside because too many people were in the aisleway.
Yeah.
So they could actually come up and from the edge of where your booth ends, so here's 3 feet and along the edge, you're supposed to stand in there. That didn't actually happen most of the time, but.
Yeah, how are they gonna control where people stand? How does that work?
Well, they just come back and please take a step in,
Yeah.
or take your backpack off.
There's plenty of people they're called enforcers that walk around and kind of manage the crowds, and you're supposed to listen to them and stuff. But obviously people listen and then go back to do what they're doing.
One
So.
of the enforcers went and bought us lunch on Sunday.
Oh, sweet.
Which was amazing because I didn't want to eat another fucking chicken bowl. So he went to Jimmy John's across the street and picked up food for us.
It was the
which
most
was
exciting Jimmy John's of my whole life. Will likely be remain that.
Oh,
It
cool.
was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening.